Hello, Year 5, and welcome to your third English lesson out of the series of 10 based on the book The Arrival by Sean Tan and the theme of community. Let's get ourselves organised. Here's our starter for today, and it's all about thinking creatively. Doors to explore. There are 4 doors in front of you. Each, you can see, have been created or decorated in very different styles. Which one would you choose? Why would you choose it? What are you expecting to see on the other side? Which door might be the calmest on the other side, or the most fun? And here's a tricky one for you. What type of music might I be able to hear when I open each of these doors? Pause the video now so you've got time to think. Welcome back. Were there any doors that were easier to think about than others? I wonder which one I might hear some classical music behind. I wonder which one might be filled with bubbles and balloons. Well, now that we've got our brains warmed up, let's get started with today's lesson. Make sure you have everything you need, something to write with and something to write on. There'll be lots of note-taking today, so make sure you've got plenty of space. Let's get going. So today we're going to start the writing journey. We've begun our story, The Arrival by Sean Tan, and we found out a little bit about why this gentleman is having to leave his city and head somewhere else. But this book is a picture book. There are no words. So how are we going to build a writing journey out of it? We're going to be writing an informal letter. And we can see how Sean Tan has made some very deliberate choices as an artist and chosen things deliberately to show the reader. And we're going to be doing that as authors, except this time with words rather than pictures. I'm going to show you what I mean by this in today's lesson. So here's the next part of the story. We see all the passengers huddled up on the ship. They're then taken from the ship down to the dockyards and registered. Next, we see the inspections going on, checking each of the passengers, making sure they're well. And finally, we see our arrival, finally stepping foot into the city that he'll call his new home. We're going to be using this part of the story to help us make some deliberate word choices to affect our reader. Here's how. I'm going to show you those 4 parts of the story again. And for each part, we're going to break it down into its verbs. And from there, I'm going to show you how we can develop those verbs to create an effect on our reader. You'll need to split your page into 4 sections, one for each of the parts of the story. It's up to you how you do this. You could do this into quarters, or you might want to just finish your section, rule it off, and make sure the next one is clearly spaced underneath. It's your choice. If you'd like time to set yourself up for this, pause the video now. Okay, are we ready? So here's the first picture that we saw in our story timeline. We've got all those characters, all those passengers on the ship. And I've then elaborated on this with some more images from the book. We have a guard of some sort, seems to be shouting or pointing. We have the unhooking of the gate. We have people kind of collecting their things. And then we see the stream of passengers walking off of the boat. So let's pick our verbs first. Now I've gone with 3 to begin with. Now, when I describe these images, I could use these verbs. The passengers sit on the boat. The guard called for people to leave. The passengers walked off the ship. And these would be perfectly fine sentences. However, they don't have much of an effect on our reader. They give us a very simple image. And what we want to do is really make the reader understand how they're feeling, how they're moving, so they get a more in-depth picture of what's happening. So we can take these verbs and we can enhance them by choosing synonyms, so words that have the same meaning but are a different shade of meaning. They are more than just sitting or less than just sitting. They are more than a cool or less than a cool. Let's take a look and see what I mean. So more than just to sit down might be to park. Forcibly put yourself down. I parked myself on the edge of the bench. More than just park might be to slump. Okay, so you're relaxing into it. You're sitting more heavily into your seat. More than a slump might be to curl up. Okay, they curled up on the floor of the ship. What if it was less than a sit? Less than might be to perch, just resting on the edge of that seat. Less than that might be just to rest. So it's more of a lean, kind of sitting, but there's not maybe quite enough to sit on. And then less than that might be to squat. So whilst I'm in that sitting position, I'm not actually sitting down. These give us those shades of meaning. And if I gave my reader a sentence with a more than version of the verb, it would give a different picture than if I chose a less than. For example, the passengers slumped on the deck of the ship. Gives us the image that they are maybe tired or worn out. Or the passengers perched on the deck of the ship. This gives us a kind of restless kind of feel. There's a bit more energy going on here. They're ready to move on to somewhere else. They're not expecting to stay very long. We get 2 very different images. Let's see which word I've decided to use in order to match the picture that we have here. Slumped against each other. The passengers waited for the boat to dock. So I've gone with slumped can see they're far more relaxed. They don't seem to be in any hurry to go anywhere. They're not nervous at all. Why don't you have a go in your A section, however you've split that up on your page? Choose one of the words and create your own sentence, or use the one I've got and change slumped for maybe a more than word or a less than word. Do you notice the difference? Pause the video now so that you can write and jot your ideas down. Okay, let's have a go at the next one. So we've got cool here. Cool. More than a cool. Holler. Ha. More than a holler. A yell. Rah! A bit more energy and oomph behind it. More than a yell. Shout. Maybe slightly higher pitched when we shout than a yell. More than a shout. Bellow. Those words seem to go on for much longer. What about if it was less than a cool? Oh, you might just say it. Less than just say it. I might mutter it. Can you think of a word that might be less than mutter? Ooh, I've gone with mumble. You can hardly hear your lips moving and you just about make out the words. Is there a less than mumble? I thought you might say that. Whisper. Excellent. Okay. Let's think about maybe the guard over here, right behind my arrows there. And he had the megaphone in his hand and he's pointing. Would you choose a more than or a less than word? Okay. Let's see it in action. Take the time now to pause the video and to write down your sentence using your more than or your less than word. Let's see what I've got. Instructions were bellowed at us from the megaphone. I've really gone for that more than. He's really trying to get their attention. If I wanted to talk about the passengers, though, rather than the guard, could I still use bellowed? Why not? I would probably choose a less than word because they're going to be much quieter characters, unless, of course, there might be a problem. I might say that the passengers muttered to themselves, or I could hear the mumble of the passengers as they collected their things, or a child whispered to their parents. I definitely use my less than words there, and it would definitely give a very different picture. Let's have a look at our last one. Pause the video now so that you can have a think about what some of our more than words for walk would be. So more than a walk, remember it's still got to be a walk, we're not running. And some of our less than walking words. Again, we're not going to be crawling, we've still got to walk. I'll see you in a moment. Okay, let's see if we've got some of the same words. I've got parade. Oh, it's a lovely little parade with a bit of a bounce in our step. More than that, I've gone with a march. Okay, very purposely walking, maybe a bit faster. After that, more than a march, hot foot. Oh, so a very quick walk. You can imagine somebody who might be late for something or somebody walking around the school knowing that they shouldn't be running, but they need to get there quicker, like, oh. What about less than a walk? They might amble, slowly make their way. What about shuffle? Not quite able to pick their feet up and dragging them along. Less than that, maybe a stagger. So it's difficult to take each step, but they're still taking it. Which of these words might we use to describe our passengers leaving the boat? Pause the video now so you can choose your word and build your sentence. Ooh, I wonder how many of you chose a less than word. Did any of you choose a more than word? Okay, let's see what I've gone with. We shuffled down the gangplank towards our new home. I've gone with shuffled, so it's less than. Now, the reason why I've chosen that is because I can see that there's lots of people there. And I know from my own experience when there's lots of people walking in the same direction, maybe down some stairs at the train station or going through a shop, that we're not able to move quite as fast. So we start to kind of shuffle because everybody wants to still get to where they're going. I've gone with shuffle. Although I could very easily go with maybe march. Maybe they all are being ushered off quite quickly. Maybe they're marching off. Who knows? But again, we get very different images and feelings. A shuffle, kind of like herding animals, isn't it? Whereas a march, these passengers seem quite confident and they know exactly where they're going. So you as the author have to decide, what image do I want to create? Let's practice these some more with our next section of the story. Remember to rule off your work or to move to the next section. You ready? So the next step of the story, we've got the image there of the arrival holding his hat and somebody maybe looking down a register to see if his name is there. And I've given you this second image that gives you a bit of an idea about where the arrival is. And it looks like this giant hall at the dockyards where all of those arrivals are being registered and ticked off. If you've been following our Windrush history lessons, you would have seen similar photographs of Southampton docks where those arrivals were just landing in the UK. So what verbs are we going to choose? What actions and being words have we got? Again, I've gone with these three. You may have some others and you might want to try our more than and less than with your words. Let's have a look at these together. Hold. He's holding his hat. What might be more than a hold or less than a hold? Some of these verbs are trickier than others. Let's have a look to give you some ideas. Grasp. Ooh, a bit of a tighter hold. More than a grasp, a squeeze, not wanting to let it go. More than a squeeze, an embrace, like getting, much closer to it, a much stronger hold on it. I wonder what would be less than just holding something. Well, I'm just handling it. So it means I might be moving it. It's just resting in my fingertips. Less than that, just a fondle. So again, using the fingers as opposed to the whole hand. Less than that. I might just clinch it. So it might just be resting on one or two fingers. It's usually when accidents happen, when things are just being clinched. I wonder I wonder how I might describe the man holding the hat, especially knowing that he might be quite nervous and anxious. Is he going to be fondling it? Is he going to be grasping it and squeezing it? Stop the video now so you can make your choice and write a sentence using it. Welcome back. Here's what I went with. As I trembled in fear, the grasp on my hat tightened. Oh, I'm literally describing that change from just holding it to grasping it. I can imagine as an author writing a second sentence about maybe the more I squeezed it, the more I could, the more the guard saw my nerves, maybe. Now, if you chose a different word, that's absolutely okay. Please don't feel that because it's not the word I chose, it's not the correct word. You're the author, remember? You choose what you want your reader to experience. Let's look at the next word, hope. Now, this really is a bit of a tricky one. Hope, more than hope, might be to believe it. More than believing it, you desire it, you really want it. More than desire, you expect it to happen. There's no guarantee that it will, but you have that expectation. What about less than hope? You might doubt it. Less than doubt? Disbelief. Oh, it's not going to happen. I wonder which of these feelings might be how our arrival is feeling. And it's okay to choose hope if you think that is the best word to describe his feelings. Pause the video now so you can make your choice and write your sentence. Let's see what we've got. The longer it took for the guard to read my paperwork, the more doubt began to creep in. As I was reading that, I had a little thought in my mind. Actually, I could get rid of that first part of the sentence, the longer it took for the guard to read my paperwork. Okay, and I could just have a simple sentence. Doubt began to creep in. Or I could swap it round. Doubt began to creep in the longer it took for the guard to read my paper, or more doubt began to creep in the longer it took for the guard to read my paperwork. So even as an author, I'm thinking, I like my sentence, but hang on, there might be something else I can do with this. It's a tricky business. Let's look at our third verb for this picture. Right. They're more than right? They're less than right? Pause the video now to have a think about what those words might be. Okay, let's hear some of your ideas. I think you'll find some of those might turn up. Let's have a look. You've got more than just write it down. You're recording it. Careful consideration about what you need to put down. More than recording something, compose. And we're seeing that the writing becomes about more thinking behind the words that are being put down on the page. You today are composing because you're thinking about making those deliberate choices with your words. More than compose? Difficult to say. Less than it, though. Just drafting it. Not much thought. Let's just get something written down. And you might find today you want to draft things so that later on you can give it some careful thought. Less than a draft? Scribble? Less than a scribble? Jot? Maybe 1 or 2 words. Sometimes it's about the amount that we're writing. Which verb do you think is going to best describe how this guard is recording or writing in this book? Take a moment to pause the video so you can choose your word and write your sentence. Let's have a look then. I've gone with finally, comma. A scribble was swiped across the bottom of the page, letting me go on my way. Nice and quick. No real thought about it. Okay. We're going to go on to the third section now, so on to C. Okay, so here's that next set of pictures. So I gave you these at the very beginning. We can see somebody looking in his eye, inspecting his ear, maybe pinning something on him. And then we seem to see our arrival getting maybe some instructions. He doesn't look too happy about it. He looks quite confused. And I guess that might be how we all feel when we arrive in a strange or a new place. Let's see what verbs I've come up with. Ooh, just two this time. Listen and touch. You may have come up with some other verbs, and that would be absolutely fine for you to explore some more than and less than words. Let's have a look at these. Listen, more than a listen, being attentive. I'm nodding, I'm agreeing, I'm not agreeing, but I'm taking in what's being said. More than being attentive, I'm concentrating. And we can see that type of listening really happening in the whole face. The eyes start to stare, the brow, the brow starts to, but the brow starts to furrow, and usually the head comes forward as well. Less than a listen. Okay. Eavesdrop. Oh, I wasn't meant to hear it, but I can just about make it out. Less than eavesdropping. Oh, I might just have overheard it. I wasn't even trying to listen. It was so loud, I just heard it. Less than overhear. Notice. It very vaguely catches our attention. Choose which word you think best describes either the passenger or maybe the doctor over here. Pause the video now so that you can make your word selection and write your sentence. Let's see what we've got. It took all my concentration to hear what was being said over the noise in the great hall. Remember that video I showed, remember the image that I showed you right at the beginning. That concentration, you can see he's really trying. Next verb, to touch something. More than a touch, a grope, so you're almost grabbing it. More than that, probe, so we're kind of, I'm gonna, start poking around a little bit more in there. Or to scrutinize, really looking at it, really pulling it apart. Less than touch. Brush, a light connection. Less than a brush past. A prod. Less than a prod. Poke. It's a really short amount of time that's being given to that moment, that contact. Pause the video now so that you can choose your words and write your sentence. Here's the sentence that I've created. The doctor prodded and poked me and scrutinized my overall health. I've used some from both ends. Pause the video now so that you can create your own sentence. So here is our final image, and I've left this one on its own. So which verbs can we identify here? Look, think. Could have used stand. It's difficult to identify what is more than standing or what's less than standing. Maybe you can do that one. So here are my ideas. More than a look, less than a look. I know you'll have lots of ideas for this. Pause the video so that you can come up with your more than and your less than words. Welcome back. More than a look, a watch. Looking at it for a bit longer. A gaze. almost like a stare, intently looking, more than a stare. I wonder what that would be. Less than it, or just to notice it. Caught your eye. A glance, oh, just a quick look. Less than a glance. Peep. Which one would you choose? What best describes our character at this point in the story? Pause the video so that you can choose your word and write your sentence. Welcome back. Let's have a look. I studied my surroundings. There was so much to take in. Studied. There it is. Great word. Studied. See, as I was writing, I remembered and I found another word that I could have used. Maybe that's one that you picked out. Like I said, there are always more words that we can add, and that's okay. So to more than a think, imagine. More than imagine. Envisage. Ooh. More than envisage, so being able to see it. Determine. I'm going to make some decisions, determining what's going to happen. Less than thinking. Not to disregard it, not to give it time. Less than that, overlook it completely. Not even see its importance. Less than that, forget completely. Which ones may best describe our character at this point in the story? Pause the video now so you can make your choice and write your sentence. Let's see what we've got. My mind was totally overwhelmed and I had completely forgotten what I was supposed to do. What else could we have had? I determined the best direction to go by watching the passers-by. I overlooked the fact that I wouldn't be able to read the street signs. I hadn't thought about it. I imagined it might take me quite a while to get to my hotel. See how each of these sentences give us a slightly different impression about our character, about how confident he is, and about who he is as a person. My version of him makes him seem like he's a little bit nervous and he's quite forgetful. So we've done all 4 parts of our story now, and we've seen how we can make these deliberate choices. We don't just have to go with the first word that we think of. And this is really great practice. And we'll continue with this deliberate word choice in today's task and in tomorrow's lesson. So in today's task, we're going to take those words that we've generated and those sentences, and we're going to bring them all together. We're going to bring them together to write a short paragraph from the man's perspective about the day's events. Here's how mine looks. Slumped against each other, the passengers waited for the boat to dock. Instructions were bellowed at us from the megaphone. We shuffled down the gangplank towards our new home. The longer it took for the guard to read my paperwork, the more doubt began to creep in. Finally, a scribble was swiped across the bottom of the page, letting me go on my way. It took all my concentration to hear what was being said over the noise in the great hall. And the doctor prodded and poked me and scrutinized my overall health. I studied my surroundings. There was so much to take in. My mind was totally overwhelmed, and I had completely forgotten what I was supposed to do. Now, even though those sentences clearly talk about and show what happens in each of those pictures, I'm going to need to edit this in order to make sure it makes sense. So, slumped against each other, the passengers waited for the boat to dock. I may want to add in a fronted adverbial to my next sentence so that they link together. Before long, instructions were bellowed at us from the megaphone. We shuffled down the gangplank towards our new home. Again, I need something to link those. After collecting our things, we shuffled down the gangplank towards our new home. So even though we've got that great vocabulary in those sentences we've already written, I want you to think about how you can join those ideas together. Once we had arrived at the check-in point, the longer it took for the guard to read my paper, the more doubt began to creep in. Finally, a scribble was swiped across the bottom of the page, letting me go on my way. I don't need to add something in there. Those two sentences work well together. Take your time, and you'll need to keep reading it back to yourself to make sure that it makes sense. Good luck. Take your time. Remember, it's about carefully selecting those words to create the right effect on your reader. That's it for today, but I'll see you again tomorrow.